out on the road a little bit. And, we've been touring a lot, doing a lot.
Debbie Harry, the sex symbol of the new wave era, captivated the world with her piercing eyes and sweet voice. But behind the bright red lipstick and Playboy covers, there was a dark side, a side of Debbie Harry that the public never saw. Her treacherous relationships, sleepless nights on drugs, and even a near-fatal home invasion were just a few of the untold stories of her rise to fame. But who really shaped the path Debbie Harry took, and what drove this rising star to consider herself a warning? Read on as we explore the dark side of the immortal icon, Debbie Harry, like you've never seen it before.
Now that's determination.
Born on July 1st, 1945, in Miami, Florida, in the aftermath of World War II, Deborah Harry's life began under complex and mysterious circumstances. Her biological mother, a young unmarried woman, left her at the hospital without a word of goodbye. No photographs, no names, just a void in Debbie's early life that would remain unanswered for years. Taken to an orphanage, she was later adopted by Catherine and Richard Harry, a middle-class couple from Hawthorne, New Jersey. They loved and raised her, but the absence of her birth mother left an unspoken void, a question that haunted her throughout her childhood: who am I? Why was I left behind? It was this emptiness, this silent longing for something she could never grasp, that sparked the rebellious spirit in Debbie. She sought solace and meaning in art, using music and the stage to repaint herself, to carve out a new identity through melodies and lights. But, as with many stars who shine bright, her journey to adulthood was anything but easy. Before becoming a punk icon of the 70s, Debbie Harry lived through countless struggles, holding down odd jobs just to survive in the dangerous yet vibrant city of New York. From working as a secretary in a law firm, to taking up office work, to becoming a Playboy bunny at the renowned Playboy Club, Debbie's journey took her to places where beauty, desire, and darkness often collided. It was within the glittering walls of that so-called paradise that Debbie's life began to spiral in a direction no one would have expected. As she navigated the treacherous path through fame and fortune, Debbie Harry faced challenges that tested her strength, resilience, and very identity. But it was through these trials that she would eventually emerge as one of the most influential figures in music and pop culture. Her rise to fame was not just the story of a star, it was the story of a woman who had to rebuild herself from the ashes, using the very struggles that sought to tear her apart as the foundation for her reinvention. It seemed like the dream of millions of young girls: bright lights, silk dresses, expensive wine, and powerful, rich men. But behind the glittering allure of those moments, there existed a dark, exploitative world, controlled by manipulative and twisted figures. Debbie Harry, however, never spoke directly about this period of her life. Instead, she quietly uttered a chilling line: "I am alive. I am breathing. That is the luck in my life." From being abandoned as a child, to enduring life as a Playboy bunny trapped in a world of exploitation, Debbie Harry would rise from the ashes to become the most captivating and enigmatic figure Hollywood had ever witnessed. In the late 1960s, Debbie Harry began her musical career as a backup singer for the folk rock group The Wind in the Willows. While their debut album, released in 1968 on Capitol Records, didn't make a huge splash, it marked Harry's first foray into the professional music world. But her journey was just beginning. In 1973, she joined the Stilettos alongside Elder Gentile and Amanda Jones, shifting to a more aggressive, endearing sound. It was during this period that she met guitarist Chris Stein, who would not only become her musical partner but also her longtime lover. But even before the glory, pain came first. In her memoir Face It, Debbie Harry revealed a haunting experience. She had been raped at knife point during a violent burglary at the home she shared with Stein. This traumatic event became a mental wound that would haunt her for years. Yet, despite these dark experiences, Debbie Harry pressed on, determined to reclaim her narrative. In 1974, she and Chris Stein left the Stilettos and formed a new band, Angel and the Snake, which they soon renamed Blondie, a name born from the derisive catcalls and whistles she often received from men on the streets. But Debbie knew how to transform insults into triumph, and Blondie became her ultimate weapon. With her striking two-tone hair, a cool beauty that seemed plucked straight from a David Lynch dream, and a fashion sense that boldly defied conventions, Debbie Harry quickly became the untouchable muse of the underground music scene. Blondie took the stage at iconic venues like Max's Kansas City and CBGB, the dark shrines of punk and new wave. And then, they exploded. In 1976, their debut album Blondie was released, finding its place in the underground new wave scene. While it didn't immediately take the US by storm, it climbed to number 14 in Australia, marking their first breakthrough. But it wasn't until 1979, as the British market began to embrace new wave, that the album cracked the top 75 in the US, a subtle yet significant sign of what was to come. However, it was 1978 that would truly change everything. The release of their third album, Parallel Lines, marked a turning point not just for Blondie, but for the entire music scene. More than just a punk album, it became a new pop manifesto. And when Heart of Glass hit the airwaves, Blondie was no longer just a rebellious New York band, they had become a global phenomenon. The song topped both the US and UK charts, sold nearly 2 million copies, and was considered an artistic betrayal of punk. But in many ways, it was Blondie's true arrival, both as a musical act and as a cultural force. In June 1979, Debbie Harry graced the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. But there was no radiant smile, no grand introduction. She stared directly into the camera with a cold, sexy, and carefree look that instantly captured the imagination of millions. That one glance made viewers wonder, who is Blondie? And soon, the question was not just about the band, but about her. As Blondie's fame grew, they launched a campaign to redefine themselves, not just as a band, but as an entity where the glory belonged to more than just a head of hair. The storm didn't stop. Eat to the Beat, released in September 1979, continued to assault the market, reaching number 1 in the UK, number 17 in the US, and earning platinum certification. A year later, Auto-American was released, and Blondie soared to new heights with consecutive global hits, Call Me, Atomic, The Tide is High, and most notably, Rapture, the first song to incorporate rap elements and top the US Billboard charts. Who could have predicted that a punk band, led by a white female singer, would open the door for hip-hop to enter the mainstream? Debbie and her boyfriend, Chris Stein, befriended street performer Fab Five Freddy, who later introduced them to the early hip-hop scene in the Bronx, bringing a new cultural dimension to Blondie's music. But Debbie Harry's influence didn't stop at music. In 1980, the eccentric genius of modern art, Andy Warhol, invited her to his iconic factory. There, Warhol didn't just photograph her, he transformed her into art. In his famous silkscreen series, Debbie's piercing gaze, her hair wrapped in a toxic cloud, and her chaotic color palette turned her into a visual icon of pop art. She became the post-war Marilyn Monroe, the living symbol of the American dream, redefined and reborn under the neon lights of New York City. Her friendship with Warhol lasted until the end of his life, and it was through him that she learned the invaluable lesson of constantly embracing change. As Debbie herself later said, "Andy taught me one thing: never get stuck in the past. Always embrace the new. No matter how old you are, no matter how many times the world turns its back on you." This mantra became Debbie's guiding light as she continued to push boundaries in every aspect of her life. And Debbie Harry certainly lived that philosophy. She was never one to shy away from discomfort or taboo topics. In 2014, she openly discussed her relationships with women during her youth, surprising many with her fearless honesty. It only added to her image as an independent, straightforward, and free-spirited woman. As Blondie became one of the most iconic bands of the late 70s and 80s, Debbie's status as a global star was undeniable. In June 1979, she graced the cover of Rolling Stone, not with a radiant smile, but with a direct, cold gaze. Sexy, carefree, and mysterious, Debbie Harry's look made millions ask, "Who is Blondie?" And in turn, they began to mistake Blondie for her. It became clear that Blondie was not just a band, it was an extension of Debbie Harry herself. Behind the heavy mascara and signature two-tone blonde hair, Debbie Harry's life was far from glamorous. Her personal journey was marked by a tumultuous relationship with Blondie guitarist Chris Stein. They were not just bandmates but lovers for many years, and their relationship was complicated, built on music, yet torn apart by the grip of addiction. Both Debbie and Chris struggled with substance abuse during their time together and spent time in rehab, fighting to escape the seductive hold of the 70s and 80s drug culture. Their relationship ended in 1987, but the bond they shared remained strong. Debbie would later become the godmother to Chris's two daughters, a testament to the enduring friendship that survived the pain of their romantic split. Still, the darkness didn't end there. In her 2019 memoir Face It, Debbie shared one of the most harrowing experiences of her life, being raped at knife point during a burglary at the house she shared with Chris Stein. The memory was cold, filled with fear, and remained unforgettable for her, a moment impossible to live through yet still present in her heart. In the same memoir, Debbie revealed another chilling encounter. She was nearly a victim of the notorious serial killer Ted Bundy. As a young woman, she was lured into a white car with missing door handles, a chilling detail that matched the car Bundy used in his crimes. Though authorities doubted the story, as Bundy was believed to be in Florida at the time, the trauma of such an experience stayed with Debbie for the rest of her life, a reminder of the psychological scars that such events can leave behind. As of 2019, Debbie Harry still lives in the bustling neighborhood of Chelsea, New York City, occasionally retreating to her quiet home in Middletown Township, New Jersey, where she shares her space with her 4 loyal dogs. She remains a living legend, one whose story continues to inspire, shock, and captivate audiences worldwide. Debbie Harry, the woman who once lit up the world with her voice and her presence, continues to live life on her own terms, embracing the new, no matter the cost. Debbie Harry, the punk icon who revolutionized the music scene, may not have a husband or biological children, but she has created a family, a legacy of cultural influence, with friends, guardians, and a place in history that the world continues to passionately explore. More than just a punk star, Debbie embodies a generation of women who dared to live on their own terms. She dared to love, dared to make mistakes, and most importantly, she dared to confront her past and move forward, standing tall on her own 2 feet. The year 1978 marked a turning point for Blondie, the band that would change the trajectory of music forever. With the release of their 3rd album, Parallel Lines, they transcended punk. It was more than just an album, it was a new pop manifesto, a declaration of artistic independence. And then came Heart of Glass, the track that catapulted Blondie from a rebellious New York band to a global phenomenon. The song topped the charts in both the US and the UK, sold nearly 2 million copies, and became a controversial mix of pop, disco, and punk, challenging the boundaries of the genre. Critics called it an artistic betrayal of punk, but for Debbie, it was an evolution. In June 1979, Debbie Harry made an unforgettable appearance on the cover of Rolling Stone. No radiant smile, no overly posed image. She stared directly into the camera, cold, sexy, and carefree. That look left millions of viewers questioning, who is Blondie? And soon, Blondie became synonymous with her. The band, recognizing the power of Debbie's presence, launched a campaign that redefined them, not as just a group, but as a force of personality, with a spotlight shining on more than just her iconic 2-tone hair. Factory. There, Warhol did more than photograph her, he turned her into art. In his iconic silkscreen series, her piercing gaze, hair swirling in chaotic clouds, and bold use of color made Debbie not just a muse, but the visual icon of pop art. She was, in many ways, the post-war Marilyn Monroe, an embodiment of the American dream, burned and reborn under the neon lights of New York City. Her friendship with Warhol would last until his death, and Debbie continued to push boundaries with every step she took. She was the first guest on MTV's 15 Minutes, where she casually opened with a line that left America speechless: sex, vegetables, brothers, and sisters. For Debbie, there were no boundaries between art, the body, sexuality, and social defiance. She lived a life that celebrated freedom and raw expression, constantly evolving and challenging societal norms.